Hi everybody, Adrian Plus here.
Yeah, and Bridget, hello.
And it's our 34th day.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
Now, I have been reading one or two things from a book I once wrote called A Year at St. Yore's, which is 12 Christian magazines, church magazines. And I'll give you a couple more. I mentioned that each month begins with a little rhyming couplet by the terrible George Payne, which is very, very, very silly and very typical of him. So I'll give you one of those again. I was just looking through them, and I think September. Yes, this is what he wrote for September. September, and the summer's over. Leaves are redder, browner, mover. Gives you some idea of George Payne's brain. And then a couple of the sayings that we've got from the book. Here's one which I think is very interesting. When limping voles begin to stutter, there'll be droppings in the gutter.
Oh, I think that's quite upsetting, really. I mean, first we have to think of voles, then we have to think of them limping, then we have to think of them stuttering. I'm not surprised there'll be droppings in the gutter.
It's taken 5 generations to establish that little truth. Here's another one. Scrub a brick until it's clean. You'll sign a contract with the Queen. There we are.
Actually, we're a little bit worried, aren't we? Because we had an email in connection with the saying that you used yesterday.
We did, yeah. This is the one I read yesterday. Chewing moss that's soaked in beer will bring true love within the year.
Yes, and she said desperate times could lead to desperate measures, so please don't try that at home.
No, don't try it at home. It won't bring true love and it will make you sick.
That's right. We also heard one more little story about pears, and we were talking yesterday, I think, and the day before actually, about how much Adrian loves pears. Well, this is about a golden retriever who loves pears. And this couple who wrote to us said that they were on holiday in a caravan park, very, very quiet sight. And they used to love watching every morning where a golden retriever would walk up to a little pear tree, gently take a pear between its teeth, pull it, drop it on the ground, and then eat it, and then walk off home. So he had a pear for breakfast every single morning.
The thing about animals is they quite often do things that surprise you, don't they? That's interesting. I don't think I've ever known a dog that ate pears. Certainly not one that
we
picked
probably
them.
will hear of dogs eating all sorts of things now.
Anyway, yesterday, we have to tell you, was not one of our great days. We were both, I think, just fed up. And
it was a scratchy day,
yes.
And I think that's probably pretty typical of this time, actually, that, you know, we're trying to cope all the time with so many things, and I don't know.
I just felt piddled off.
Yeah, so did I, actually.
It's an expression you'll find in Hebrews.
Well, it probably is, if you hunt hard enough.
And, it's not new to have days when you feel piddled off.
No.
And we're thinking about times. One I thought of was, this was a long time ago, I was on the tube in London on my way to do a talk somewhere, and I got a bag of books with me to sell, and I was sitting on the tube thinking, oh, here I go again. You know, however much you enjoy your work, every now and then it pales, doesn't it? I thought, I just don't want to go and talk about God and sell some books, and I'm so bored with it. And we're rolling along on the tube, got to a stop, and these 2 men got on, and they were very well dressed, sort of city types, and they couldn't find a seat, so they were strap hanging by the door, and they were talking in loud, posh voices about profits and business and all sorts of stuff. And I thought, that's what I should be doing, not going off talking about God with a bag of books. I could be making some money in the city. And we went another 2 or 3 stops, and the train stopped again. And one of the men looked through the window, and he said to the other, oh, we're going the wrong way. And I was really pleased. But as I thought about it, I thought there is a small parable here. I mean, if God had been in the tube train, I think he would have said to me, now look, Plas, you may be fed up today, but at least you're going the right way. And I think we've been rescued from piddled offness quite often by simply remembering we are going in the right direction, if we are.
One of the things I think is so odd about this time is that a lot of us are not necessarily rushing around and being as busy as we normally would be physically, or rushing around doing various jobs and things, and yet it's very tiring. And I was
Yes, it
thinking
is,
about
actually.
this,
You're right about that.
and
Yeah.
I was remembering something that happened ever such a long time ago. We keep saying this, though everything we did was ever such a long time ago. Well, this wasn't quite as long time ago as your tube story.
Everything we did was a very long time ago.
But it was a while ago, and
Yeah.
we were in South Africa, and we went on a sort of safari walk with an expert, and it was absolutely fascinating because he was showing us various plants and how people many, many centuries ago had used these plants. And we came to this bush, and now I know you'll know what I mean when I say that we suddenly felt very silly because the expert said, right, I'd like you to look at this bush and tell me exactly what you think is different about it. And you stare, don't you, in a sort of bewildered way and think, I've got to see something. And the only thing that we could see was that there was a rather ugly growth on one of the branches of this, well, it was a sort of large shrub, maybe almost a tree. And so we said, well, we can see a sort of large lumpy thing. And he said, this bush is called the silver-leaf Terminalia. He said it's a rather foolish bush. The trouble with this bush is it's constantly thinking and getting things wrong. So what happens is a lump appears on one of its branches and he thinks, I'm having a bud. Well, it must have been a she, really, thinks, I'm having a bud. What's actually happened is an insect has burrowed under the bark and laid some eggs. But this silly bush thinks, no, I'm having a bud. And so it sends all its nutrients towards this bud to try to build it and turn it into something beautiful. And then another one appears on another branch and it thinks, oh my goodness, I better send some nutrients to that bud. And then another, until eventually the bush dies. Silver-leafed Terminalia.
The low IQ silver-leafed Terminalia.
I know, but I think what it made me think is that that's what, in a way, what's happening and why we're getting so tired. One minute we're feeling, I really must listen to the news. I must be aware of what's happening. And it's incredibly depressing and makes us feel useless unless we are one of the frontline people actually working there, making a difference. So that happens. And then we think, no, I must be able to relax because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Or I must be more creative because I'm sure that's what I should be doing. Or cleaning out my cupboards or whatever. And it's the thinking that kind of gets so confused. And what I was thinking, Adrian, is that we need to think of one bud and we need to simplify. You love the Cube, don't you? Or used to love the program The Cube.
Well, we've got the game here in the house, and I just want to say that I did rather well at it once, as I never do well at things like that. Any opportunity to tell people, I got it, I got right through to the end.
Well, that's not
I
quite
absolutely smashed it.
Well, what I was going to talk about was that if any of you remember the Cube, what happens is you have a task, it's often quite complicated, that you have to complete in a certain length of time. But you're allowed to simplify it. And so if it's a box that you're throwing a ball into, the box is bigger or whatever it is. And I was thinking that's really what we need to try and do with our thoughts, is just quietly simplify. We were listening to, or rather watching, Andrew Marr yesterday, weren't we?
Yeah.
And Michael Palin was on.
Oh, yeah. It was really interesting. I always liked Michael Palin, and he was asked what he thought about travel, because he's a great traveller. And obviously with the circumstances as they are now, he can't travel. And he said, well, actually, there's plenty of interesting things to see in this part of the world, in Great Britain, in England, and maybe people should explore places they've never been. There are fascinating places all over the country, and I'm glad you said that. And I think it is a little parable, perhaps, of possibility. Now we're in lockdown and all that, for looking at the things that are close to us and enjoying some of them repairing some of them, taking stock of some, giving more respect to some.
Well, actually, we were
than we
also
had
watching a
before.
programme, Jimmy's Farm, weren't we, yesterday or the day before? And he was talking about the need to walk through woods or walk down your garden and lift a log and
That's
see what's
right.
growing underneath it. Just really simplifying.
Yeah. Having said that, they have an incredibly complex farm, don't they? So
Yeah.
but he knows how to stop.
Yeah, but we
He
are
knows how
supposed
to
to have a walk a day.
We are supposed to have a walk a day. We're also remembering somebody else who got really piddled off, and excuse that expression, but it is Hebrews. This
Who was that then you're talking about?
This lady had enough. She was working in a Christian organisation, and she just got to that point of stress and weariness where she had enough. And so she said to one of the leaders, I'm really tired and I'm fed up, and I just...
She was on
just
tour with them, wasn't she? Yeah.
I don't feel like doing it.
Yeah.
And the person she spoke to said, you go upstairs, my girl, and put on the armour of God. Well, you know, when I heard that story, I thought, or we thought, an arm around the shoulder and a cup of tea might be more
Yeah,
use
and
than
some
that.
bubbles in a bath, absolutely.
But the other thing is that, you know, the armour of God don't half pinch sometimes. If you read about the armour of God, as Paul writes about it, you'll see it's a whole lot of stuff you're putting on.
And it's designed to protect you, isn't it? It's not designed
to
weigh
protect
you down.
Yes, it isn't real armour. I would keep pointing out to people.
Yeah.
So yes, every now and then, you just need to be who you are and relax and be looked after.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. I've often thought about the weight of the armour, that it is supposed to help, and therefore it's supposed to be bespoke for you. And I was thinking about... ever so briefly, you know, when David is about to fight Goliath, one of the stories we do all know, David does seem to get smaller and smaller in children's talks, ends up about 2 foot high. But the point about it is, he goes to see Saul, and Saul is trying to help. So Saul says to him, right, you can have my armour, you can have my shield, you can have my helmet, you can have my spear. And David looks at it and says, no, I won't do that because it won't fit me. I know that I'm best just as I am. And it's that simplifying and accepting that God isn't going to put on us stuff that isn't right for us, and that it is just going to weigh us down and make us feel worse.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Always bespoke. The armour you need, bespoke. One of the interesting things about writing poetry is that there are occasions when the thing you felt was so strong that you need, if you are someone who writes poems, you need to express it in words. And this was a time when I felt like that. And
when you were piddled off on a particular day.
I was piddled off on a particular day. And eventually it was used as a poem that went with one of the words from the cross, where Jesus said, my God, why have you forsaken me? And I'll read it to you as I wrote it at the time. On this particular day, I feel a failure. What am I allowed to wonder, Father? Am I allowed to wonder why you make it all so difficult? Of course, even as I say those words, the guilt settles. Perhaps it isn't really difficult at all. Probably it's me that's difficult, probably because of my background and my temperament and my circumstances. It was always going to be difficult for me. But what if that's just a cop-out? What if I'm kidding myself? What if, deep inside, I know that my own deliberate doing and not doing has always made it difficult? Hey, what if I'm one of those who's been called but not chosen? In that case, it's not difficult. It's impossible. And what if you don't exist at all, and death is just a sudden stumble into silence? Can you let me know if you don't exist, by the way, before Friday night, if that's possible? You know, there are moments, Father, when it's so easy. It's so easy that I can't remember why it ever seems so difficult. Those moments pass. They are very valuable, but they do pass. Have you noticed how, when those moments have gone, I sometimes really try to walk away, but I can't. I think I shall follow you, even if you don't exist, even if I'm not chosen, even if it goes on being difficult. Are you still listening? I'm sorry to have made such a fuss. It's just that on this particular day, I feel a failure. My feet and my hands hurt, and there's this pain in my side.
So I'm not sure what we're saying. I think we're saying, let's be pleased we are going in the right direction, even if it doesn't feel as though we're doing too well. And take all our crappy days and give them to God and say...
Give them to God, because he has a special recycling system.
He does.
And there is one bin with a huge label on it saying, crappy days.
Yeah.
He'll get rid of it for us. And then we'll start again.
Absolutely.
But be honest. Tell the truth.
Yeah.
Let it out.
Yeah.
It's good for us.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.